legend of the hairy hands. Have you ever had one of those moments when you start to fall asleep whilst driving? Well, that was the case for me some weeks ago, and trust me, I haven't driven since. I was on my way back home to Plymouth after attending a corporate team building event in London. You know your work is cheaped out on you though when they aren't willing to provide overnight accommodation. As for travel expenses, well, why would they pay over £100 for a return train ticket when you could just spend 4 to 5 hours driving home yourself? After an early start, followed by a day of mind-numbing PowerPoints and embarrassing role-play exercises, it was gone 8 p.m. before I managed to escape back to my car. Checking Google Maps on my phone, I let out a sigh to myself. 240 miles. This is going to be one hell of a long trip back this late at night. It was a few hours into my journey when the first feelings of fatigue kicked in. As the orange lights of the motorway flashed through my car window, I looked over to my phone holder on the dash. Just over 100 miles to go. Now, my car isn't exactly the newest of cars. Quite the opposite. A P-Reg Peugeot 106. Although not the worst by any means, it's starting to show its age. Small enough that every time a lorry goes past you're buffeted by the wind, and whenever you go over 80 miles an hour, you feel the car start to shake as if it's falling apart. Worst of all though, with only a broken cassette player and an antiquated radio for entertainment, as well as a cigarette lighter that hasn't worked since I owned the thing, you realise that once your phone is about to run out of battery, and you have no way of charging it, you're going to be completely reliant on getting back with just the aid of road signs. Now, this might not be a problem for most, but as far as it goes for me, I'm pretty geographically challenged. Damn it. Well, that's the end of my phone then, I thought, as I looked over to see the screen powering off. It couldn't have been much further to go though. By this point, I'd been driving for what felt like forever. My eyes were really starting to ache now. I cracked the window a bit to get some fresh air. The night was pitch black at this point, and the further and further I drove, the less illumination there was. Where was I wondered? The open road had swiftly shifted from a scattering of fields to a thick canopy of trees. How did I go so far off the main road? I periodically slowed my car down to check for road signs. Nothing at all. No. Wait. I really mean nothing at all. No signs, no other cars, no noise whatsoever. I needed some kind of distraction to keep me awake, so I tried my luck with the radio. I can't quite remember the last time I used it, so as you can imagine, I was greeted by the unsettling sound of static. I let the automatic channel changer cycle through the channels. Occasionally I'd catch the faint sound of a word, but the signal wasn't strong enough for me to ever make out what it was saying. Lifting my eyes up again to the road, the thick fog of the nighttime air had started to settle now, creating a solid wall of hazy darkness in front of me. Even with my lights on full, they couldn't pierce through it. I had to stop. The last thing I wanted to do was get stuck in the middle of nowhere, but at this rate, I was going to get myself into some serious trouble. I switched on my hazards and began to pull over. But my car, it wouldn't slow down. Oh God, I thought, of all of the times for this pile of junk to start playing up, why now? That's when I heard it. The voice. My eyes gazed back down at the radio. The tiny analog dial was spinning out of control, and I kept hearing the words over and over again, louder and louder. I felt the kick of my car as it suddenly started to speed up. Panic setting over me, I turned my eyes back to the road, and there, right in front of me, a humongous pair of severed arms, thick with matted black hair, hands grasping the steering wheel. I yelled in surprise and tried to fight for control, and that's when they twisted the wheel completely to one side. I slammed my foot onto the brake, but to no avail. The branches of the trees slashed at my window as I was tossed around the driver's seat once my car had left the road. I hammered at the arms, slamming my fists into them, trying to wrench the fingers free, but it was like they were made of steel. The last thing I remember was out of the darkness appearing a thick stone wall. And then everything went black. When I came to the following morning, I was woken up by the bleating of sheep and the gentle sound of running water. The rising sun scorched my eyes as I tried to focus. Fumbling about, I reached down for my seatbelt. There was broken glass and debris everywhere, but I just needed to get out. As it unlatched, I clambered out of the door and collapsed onto the soft dew-covered grass. I lay there, just trying to catch my breath, each inhalation causing a pain to shoot throughout my body. With all my might, I forced myself to my feet. There, in the middle of the field, stood an old stone bridge, and next to it, the crumpled remains of my car. I can't explain any more of what happened that night. It might have been the lack of sleep, it might have been the panic of getting lost, it might have been the fact that it was just too late at night and all I wanted to do was get home. I stumbled down an old cobble path for the next 10 or so minutes before I came to a sign welcoming me to the quaint Dartmoor village of Postbridge. Half collapsing into the first bright red phone box I saw, I scrambled in my pockets for enough change to call a taxi. By the time they had arrived and I had got back home, it was nearly midday. It was a few days before I got round to contacting my insurance company to tell them about my car. What was I supposed to say? A ghost made me crash? Though, it was when I was trying to figure out exactly where I'd crashed my car so they could pick it up, I came across something that chilled me to the core. Just outside the small village of Postbridge, on a small stretch of road through the Dartmoor moors, there have been reports of fatal collisions and missing vehicles dating all the way back to the late 19th century. And those who survived reported that their vehicles were wrenched from their control by a pair of large, hairy hands.